Welcome back. We are here with Tamara Lich's lawyer, Eva Chipiuk. How are you doing, Eva?
Very well, thank you.
Thank you. So are you going to go at the Rebel Live event in Toronto? Are you going to try to get there? Yeah.
I watched the ad and I was hooked.
Well, Tamara's going to be there, right?
Yeah,
so,
I guess.
Yeah.
Yes, I should be there.
Oh yeah, that would be great. So, we just got the perspective from one of the Freedom Convoy organizers who's not a lawyer.
And he's not an organizer.
Oh, that's right.
He was a volunteer at the Ottawa protest.
Right. Well, he did go to osmosis law school, though.
That's right. But now we have an actual lawyer here. So, Eva, what were your general thoughts from the proceedings today?
Yeah, well, today, one thing I just caught while you guys were already on air was the OPP's own lawyer started asking some questions in redirect or his cross-examination, I guess. It's a bit of a strange process we have here, not like you see in court, but their lawyer goes last before the commissioner lawyer goes again. And he actually asked him and confirmed on the record whether he knew anything about the Emergencies Act before it was invoked. And this is the OPP superintendent, so the top basically police officer in all of Ontario. And he confirmed that he found out that the Emergencies Act was invoked publicly. So he found out when you found out, when I found out. And this is the enforcement agency. So that was very interesting to hear. You would think that if there's a national security threat, which is the reason that you need the Emergencies Act, that the police officers that are going to be enforcing the law would know about what was going on. And then the follow-up question to that was, would it have been helpful for you to know that the Emergencies Act was going to be invoked? And of course, he said, yes, that would have been good information to have. Yeah. So very interesting information came out right at the end as well. We were alluded to that, but then it was very firmly confirmed at the end.
Yeah, well, I think that Brendan Miller touched a little bit on the terrorism side of things with Thomas Curry, because we know that he has a background, I believe, in counterterrorism. I don't know if you can tell us a little bit more about Thomas' background from the OPP.
Morris's background?
No, Thomas Carrick.
Oh, today. Oh, so yeah. I think it was public order administration or something like that. So how to deal with large crowds. And what I really enjoyed about Brendan Miller's cross-examination today, and I encourage everyone to review it, is he kind of went a little bit of a protest law 101. So he started with what is, really good. What is a lawful protest? And we talked about that. Then he asked what's an unlawful assembly. And then the third one was a riot. So what was very interesting in his cross-examination is he clarified all of it, basically set the stage for it, and then talked about what actually happened in Ottawa. Number one is that the truckers came in at the direction of police officers into Ottawa, and then they were assembled there at the direction of Ottawa police and OPP. And then that the barricades were put in by the police. And he couldn't confirm that at the time. He said maybe it was the truckers themselves and blocking, but we'll get that evidence out next week when the protesters have an opportunity to finally give evidence. And the last thing he had confirmed on the record was that not one individual in Ottawa was charged with unlawful assembly.
That's right.
Yeah. So very interesting. Yeah. So here we are talking about this large protest and we're hearing illegal occupation over and over. And if that really was the case, wouldn't at least, 1, 10, 100 people be charged with the crime of unlawful assembly? And today we found out nobody was.
Well, while we're here, let's take a look at some of Brendan's cross-examination with Thomas.
Right. Well, he testified that essentially, in summary, that there was no intelligence of a credible threat under Section 2 of the CSIS Act. Would you agree with that?
There was no intelligence of...
There was no credible intelligence.
No credible intelligence of a threat.
Yes.
That I would agree with that.
Right.
Yes.
And so it's fair to say that based on all OPP intelligence and the intelligence provided by the RCMP and federal intelligence agencies to the OPP, to your knowledge, there was no credible threat to the security of Canada as defined in Section 2 of the CSIS Act.
That would be my understanding, yes, as determined by Superintendent Pat Morris in consultation with CSIS and the RCMP.
Thank you.
So there we have it. I mean, every day is just more damning for the federal government, I feel.
Yeah, well, if you could see the federal government lawyers after that during that cross-examination, they looked very uncomfortable. I could tell you that.
Oh yeah. Well, you were in the room. Drea, what did you make of the clip that we just saw?
Yeah, it's so nice to have Eva really point out the stuff that, really drives it all home. But Miller time was great today. And I think you hit it all on the nail. The other thing that he said there when he brought up the barriers, which, like you said, we'll know more about soon next week. He said, if the police, in fact, brought the barriers and that's part of the reason they were stuck there or other vehicles, is it really even their fault at all that they can't move at that point? Is that an unlawful assembly or is that just being stuck, right?
Yeah.
So, there was a lot of nuggets in Miller time.
I'll jump in a little bit into the evidence next week because you got I kept hearing them saying, well, it was truckers that were blocking other truckers. And to think about that just for a moment is these are truckers that came from across the country in an effort to protest lawfully. And some of them went back to work or had to go back. And there was coordination among them from what I saw, helping each other out. There was absolutely no reason for any one trucker to be blocking another trucker. It just doesn't even make logical sense. So again, that's going to come out next week a bit more, but I thought I'd just throw that out there.
Yeah. And, next week, today was the first day that we saw Chris Barber in the building. Is there a reason why Chris Barber is coming?
Chris who?
Chris Barber.
I'm just kidding. Oh. Yes. Yeah. Chris Barber came because, he's going to be giving evidence next week. So he came out already, get acclimatized, check out the room. And here he is had an opportunity to observe the proceedings today.
Yeah. So who's going to speak? Well, we see it right here, you guys, when you were entering, you had Tamara, Chris, and both counsel on each side. Make sure that you hear that correctly, Karimji. Both counsel, all the lawyers were there. So, next week we have, I believe, Tom testifying, Keith is going to be testifying, Tamara is going to be testifying, Chris, Danny as well. What do you expect to see come out of all of that?
The truth. We have absolutely nothing to hide. Our clients were coordinating and communicating with the police ad nauseum. We all took calls from the police at all hours of the day. And that was one other thing that I'll just refer to yesterday is there was a question that was posed to the OPS officers, so the Ottawa Police Services. Do you know who Tamara Lich, Chris Barber, Tom Marazzo, and Nanny Bulford are? And he said, yes. He said, do you know whether or not they were uncooperative with the Ottawa Police Services at any time? And the response was, not that I'm aware of. So all of these, suggestions and media reports about, I can't even name all of the terrible things that have been said. And here we have clients that we came to Ottawa to represent in order to peacefully protest. We didn't even have any concerns about what activities they were doing because we were just managing and mitigating, but not concerned about whether it was lawful or unlawful, their activities.
Yeah, no, I don't
it's
think
almost as if there's two. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Drea.
I was just saying it's almost as if there's two parallel universes with this. I mean, you have the legacy media throwing out reports there that cast doubt on whether or not truckers actually came to the convoy. Oh, it couldn't have been truckers because they would have all been working. I'm sorry, some of them are not able to work. That's why they're there. But I mean, I'm interested, Eva, in your opinion on how it's possible for two very different narratives to come out of the same event.
Well, it's really concerning. that's one thing I want to put out there. And you said two different universes or realities, and it's like two different movies completely is how I've put it before. And going back to what OPP Intelligence Officer Morris spoke about is he said the disinformation that the media was putting out really affected their ability to conduct their policing activities and caused a lot of problems for them internally, sifting through what was real and not real. And that is something that this commission is interested in learning more about and is one of the mandates. So I look forward to what the commission will find there and maybe what policy recommendations, and maybe the commission will talk about journalistic standards, because it is really something that we need to be talking about.
Well, I think that's one of the reasons why people are pushing now for CBC to come testify in front of the committee as well.
Yeah, I 100% support that. I think it's important.
On the page of the commission, if you guys agree, there is a little invitation for you to add any comment or suggestions. You can go right on the page and scroll down and do that. I think that's a great idea. Let's get some Rebel reporters up there and some CBC reporters up there on the stand. That would be awesome.
Yeah, we'll see the difference between the journalistic standard. All right, I have another question.
And I will actually just ending on that topic, maybe is I wonder how many of those legacy media journalists were actually on the ground versus some of the alternative media, because then what is it you're reporting? Somebody said something, or the actual fact, again, reality versus fiction.
No, you're absolutely right on that point, 100%. Another question that I have for you. I saw yesterday the judge, the commissioner, issued a ruling and a request for an in-camera ex parte happening for the hearing. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so I only learned about that on Twitter myself, and I read the decision very quickly. What it is that the government of Canada has said that there's some very sensitive information that it needs to have in camera. So in camera means, although it is a bit of a funny name because there are no cameras.
That's right. You only have the commission cameras there.
So it's going to be outside of the public purview, and only certain representatives with security thresholds can attend. So some of the council only. And from my reading of it, it's actually only going to be Commission Council and Government of Canada Council. But they've really limited it. So what they said, and if you scroll to the end of it, is where you really get the gist of the decision, is that they're making a preliminary assessment. So I think it's just above this, input from the parties. If you go up a little bit, so the third last paragraph maybe, and it says that we're going to review the information that comes forward, and then we're going to make a determination about whether or not this has to remain confidential, or whether we're going to summarize this information, or whether we're going to make it public. So it's a very preliminary decision that the commission has made. I don't think we need to hold our breath on it or worry about it too much, at least not my take on it at this time.
So if I just read from the decision of Judge Rouleau, when I have heard the evidence, I will decide whether the evidence must remain confidential. I may decide that some or all of the evidence can be made public, for example, in a summary that describes the evidence without disclosing information that must remain confidential. Is there any resemblance between this and a publication ban during an actual court proceeding? I don't know if I totally understood your question, but definitely this one. Could we say that it is a publication ban, or are there any differences between this and a publication ban?
Probably yes. I think you could get publication bans for certain specified reasons, but this one is 100% simply because of national security threat. That's the claim that the government of Canada is making. I suspect in a court case, you could ask for a publication ban on national security things, but I'm not certain. It's usually because of a safety issue for a person, something like that.
And how much do you think is going to impact the hearing? Do you think it won't impact it at all, or do you think it's going to impact it enormously?
I definitely think it's too early to make that assessment. I think let's see what happens. Parties are have an opportunity to give input. But again, like I said, this is a preliminary meeting. And I think right now the commission wants to itself assess what this information is. And so far, what I've seen Commissioner Rouleau do with procedural things, I find very fair and not biased at all. So there was one time the OPS lawyer got a bit excited when it was the recording between Diane Deans and Watson. So that came up. So this is a very similar way of handling a procedural issue. So I really enjoyed how Commissioner Rouleau handled that matter. He said, let's first get on the record the reason why this recording wasn't disclosed earlier to the parties, because that was the claim the Ottawa Police Services lawyer was saying. He said, we didn't get this early enough. Why wasn't this disclosed earlier? And Commissioner Rouleau didn't jump to conclusions. He said, why don't we hear the reason that this wasn't provided earlier? We heard the reasons, and it was simply a technology issue. Diane Deans thought she actually handed over her phone to her assistant and said, take everything off of it. And that just didn't happen. So on that evidence, it's very hard to say, okay, she purposely didn't give the commission the recording, and the commissioner said, based on that evidence, I think it's fair and there's nothing that controversial in it anyway, and allowed it in. I anticipate we're going to see something similar with this. He's going to review it, he'll come back to the parties, and then we can have another discussion as well.
You know, I agree that so far Commissioner Rouleau has been fair in his proceeding. And I think that's the reason why Canadians have hope in this inquiry, because we see him, even though a lot of people are saying that he's a Trudeau appointed judge, we see him being impartial. We see him letting both sides of the aisle speak. We see the proceedings being cordial as well.
And I have to correct you, he's not a Trudeau appointed judge.
Okay.
He was appointed well before Trudeau, because he's been in court for quite a while. Trudeau's been around for 5 years, I think. So it was before. He has donated to the Liberal Party in the past, and I've talked about that on my TikTok. You could look at it there. But lawyers do that all the time, and he did that well before he was a judge, and that is part of being able, what we're looking for, what protesters were fighting for, the right to free speech and donate to where you want. So we can't, critique that too much. You have to give
100%.
So just little correction there. Not a Trudeau appointee.
No, I had read a report saying that it was a Trudeau appointee, but I never really did full on.
It could be that Trudeau appointed him for this commission.
Interesting. Okay.
It was an executive decision, so that could be maybe where the miscommunication.
Yeah, it's very possible. Yeah, Andrea.
Oh, I was just saying, what you said about that's what we were fighting for, the right to choose, the right to donate. It's so true. It's also what the sort of pro-freedom fight gets in so much trouble with, because we want to be fair. That's the whole point. But the left, I don't know if you can call it the left, but whatever, they're the opposite. It's my body, my choice until it has something to do with big pharma. So, they switch the narratives up as they please.
Yeah.
No, 100%. All right, let's go to a quick ad. And when we come back, we'll continue discussing the commission, and we'll read some of your chats as well.
Hey folks, from October 13th to November 25th, we are here in Ottawa for the Emergencies Act inquiry organized by the Public Order Emergency Commission. But why the Emergencies Act inquiry? Well, because during the Freedom Convoy back in February, Justin Trudeau used a never invoked before Emergencies Act to basically seize protesters' bank accounts, seize protesters' money, seize their assets, trample their civil liberties. So we're here this month for the next month and a half to figure out if the way the government acted was lawful and was appropriate. So we are here to hold the government accountable, but we need your help. We are here to cover it for you because everyone else here is mainstream media. So if you want to help us cover it, if you want to help us bring you the other side of the story, factual, actual news, go to truckercommission.com and consider making a donation.
All right, we're back here. Yeah, so I saw bits of the clip that I wanted us to analyze afterwards. So let's throw this clip where the commissioner discussed the word occupation when it comes to describing the convoy.
Safely remove them unless we have hundreds of officers to maintain. I think that says risks, and it's not clear. The bottom there, now transitioned into an occupation. So first of all, did you agree with Chief Slowly's assessment that it was an occupation at that point?
I had no reason not to agree with Chief Slowly. It certainly had turned into a situation that I felt Ottawa Police had not anticipated, and I do not think describing it as an occupation would be inaccurate at all.
Can't safely remove them unless we have hundreds of.
Drea, I saw you making some facial expressions. What did you have to say to that?
Oh man, I was actually yawning because I've been live tweeting since 6 in the morning or whatever. No, yeah, you busted me yawning. That's embarrassing.
That's fine. Well, we have a lawyer here, so Eva, occupation.
Yeah, well, I've had a hard time with that word, and that's why I really enjoyed Brendan Miller's cross-examination today. And those were Slowly's words. So I think we're going to hear more about that tomorrow. It's definitely a word that's been thrown around a lot. And I don't know what the legal definition is that they're relying on here. And like we talked about earlier, if it was an unlawful assembly, then why weren't people charged with that?
Right.
Yeah.
It's that simple. Yeah.
And before he was asked about that, he himself was referring to it as the Freedom Convoy. He wasn't saying the occupation. So
that's true. Yeah, before that question here.
Well, I think somebody should review the transcript to see how many different words have been used to describe it. Today it was the event, it's the protest. There's so many different words. So
that's very interesting. I'll take a look at that afterwards because I'm actually curious. Yeah, might have an article coming soon. The different terms that were used to describe the Freedom Convoy by people that testified today. All right. Do we have any chats from our viewers? You can read it, Drea, if you wish to.
You know what? My screen, I don't know how to make it go wide. Sorry.
Yeah. All right, let's
look. I'm just dropping the ball towards the end here.
Atom,
I can't read it.
I guess that's Adam Ottawa, but I'm not entirely sure. Paul Chem sure looked like a chump today. I think he's in over his head. I'll refrain myself from commenting.
I won't comment on that.
Paul Champ, yeah.
Sorry.
No worries. All right, is that the only chat that we have for tonight?
Thanks, Adam Ottawa. He's a regular supporter in live chats.
Yeah, thank you. Well, if you want to see one of the interactions that I had with Paul Chem, you can always look at one of my first scrum that I did here with Xegzi Lee. And I believe the first day I were here in Ottawa, Paul Chem and I interacted for a brief moment. So I'll let you take a look at that if you want to know more about my thoughts on Paul Chem. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us here, Eva, today. I know it was a little bit later than expected, but we had some technical issues from the beginning. Thank you for your work at the Commission. Thank you for joining us as well, Drea, and thank you for live tweeting today.
Thanks for having me.
See you next time.